Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the tier maker and we've got a pretty nasty format ahead of us. We got 5 top decks and this is the way I see the next format shaping up. We got Mathmech, Kashtira, Pearly, Super Heavy Samurai, and of course, yours truly, Branded. I think these are the 5 decks to beat. The format is gonna shape a little bit, maybe a little bit of a ban list can help shape things in the right direction. So how do we even plan on, hand trapping, building our deck, building a strategy with 5 decks in mind? That's so hard to do. Hopefully, this video can help make sense a little bit for you, how to build your deck, what hand traps you should be using, and what hand traps are probably just not good this format. And before we begin, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video and subscribe. If you're new, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's just start with the negates, right? We got some tiers here, strong in main, okay in main, strong inside, okay inside, and just bad. And I think that we are dealing, and this is going to be true for the entire tier list, your hand traps, this format, need to do an incredible amount of work. One single interruption is not going to stop a full Super Heavy Samurai combo. You know it's not stopping Kashtira. And don't get me started about Pearly that can just play during the draw phase. And, there are just certain cards that are really, really strong in that deck and oppressive and not once per turn, and you can't really stop them. So you need your hand traps to be effective, and this is why we have those tiers. And I think that overall, we're going to be putting all of these in okay to main and not strong to main. I think that Mourner is going to be actually a little bit better than Veiler, just because it can activate outside of the main phase, while Veiler cannot because of Pearly. And I think that even though Pearly doesn't actually get stopped by a Veiler or, a Ghost Mourner, it's still a little bit of an advantage because you have a top tier deck that can actually play in the draw phase, so I think it's crucial. The problem is that, if you have the room to play a lot of non-engine, if you're like Super Heavy Samurai or Mathmech, or even Pearly, you have a lot of room for non-engine, then you can definitely main these cards and get a lot out of them. Of course, Super Heavy Samurai doesn't play any spells or traps, or Imperm is probably going to be out of the question, but for other decks, these are just simply good cards that are always effective in some way, so they're okay to main. In a format where you have 5 top decks, there's no way you are playing something like Reaper. It's good possibly in a tier 0 format, but I don't think there's a lot to discuss about here. There's just no way anybody's playing it. And then Dogwood, I think it's just going to be okay to side because I think that, it serves only one purpose. We all know what that purpose is. And if your deck has the room in the side deck, then yeah, sure, go ahead, put it in the side deck. Then we're going to be talking about Bestials. And I think Bestials are definitely going to be strong inside. And we're going to be looking at it through the prism of 2 decks, which are Mathmech and Branded. Bestials are very good against Branded. Bestials are extremely efficient against Mathmech. Super Factorial, you chain a Bestial, you take away their diameter, they don't have a negate, and they don't have a Laplacian anymore. And that is their main follow-up play, right? They get a negate, they get to rip 2 cards, one from the field, one from the hand. So it makes Bestials good again. And if you're thinking about your deck and you're building with Mathmech in mind, Bestials are definitely going to be strong in the side deck. And I think that even though me as a Branded player would like to play a lot of these in the main because they are engine pieces that really, really help, unfortunately, for now I think it's just going to be a strong side deck option. And Nibiru is probably going to be okay to main. I think it's probably going to be less than the negates, but if you think about decks like Kashtira, they don't play carefully anymore, you can definitely nib them. Mathmech can definitely get hit by Nibiru. Now they do have a way to play around Nibiru a little bit, but overall Cyber's decks have always been known to end on a Nibiru token. This is why it's going to be okay to main, definitely. I think it's a strong card that deals with a lot of decks. The problem is Super Heavy Samurai, Pearly, maybe Branded a little bit. You can definitely hit Branded, and sometimes it will work out for you. But I think that Pearly and Super Heavy Samurai don't lose to this card. Like Super Heavy Samurai, if you don't nib them, on their 5th summon, their 6th summon is going to be a negate if it hasn't already happened on the 3rd. And Pearly, they summon probably twice, 3 times a turn, so it's not going to be as effective. Guess who's back from probably being in the bottom tier last format to being probably the best hand trap this format. So there's one disadvantage for this card, and that is the fact that Pearly can play in the draw phase. They start searching for cards in the draw phase, but eventually they will have to, put down their continuous spell that allows them to add a card from deck, and then that's probably when you droll them. But the big thing is Kastura and Super Heavy Samurai, and even Mathmech sometimes. Sometimes if Mathmech begins with an Allen version to search for a circular, if they don't have it, then they're probably not getting to Super Factorial if they did not draw it to begin with. But what this card does to Super Heavy Samurai is insane. It's basically like drolling Drytron back in the day. So Droll is going to be a very effective way in a big tournament setting to hit probably 2 or 3 of the top decks with a single card. Again, I mentioned this at the beginning. The hand traps that are going to be at the top here are going to be the ones that have the most impact, and shutting down an opponent's ability to search for the entire turn is extremely strong. I think Lancia is just going to be bad at this format. Again, there's very specific things that can work this format, and this definitely hits Kastura, but for other decks maybe it hits Branded a little bit as well. If your deck can run it, maybe it's okay to side. I'm gonna put it in okay to side just because Pearly, Super Heavy don't really banish, they don't rely on banishing. If Kastura remains a deck and it remains untouched, it might actually contest Super Heavy and Pearly because those decks really rely on the graveyard. So I'm just gonna carefully put it here in a case where Kastura remains a thing. And then Skullmeister is even probably worse than, Reaper. I'm gonna put it here. Unplayable, unfortunately, it's just a bad 1-for-1, and it's not as generic as the other cards. So I think Shifter is gonna be a strong inside option, and this is gonna be for the decks that can run it. I don't think it's a main deck thing. I think it's a side deck thing for the deck that can run it. For example, Fluandereeze, even Branded sometimes, and of course Kastura. You will see them running this in the side because it's so oppressive and so good against Super Heavy and Pearly and Mathmech as well, to be honest. So I think it's a very strong side deck option for this format. And then probably we're going to put Contact C right around here. Yeah, I think it shuts down some of the decks. It doesn't do anything to, Kastura can probably play around this. Branded, it kind of hurts, maybe if they don't play Sprint. But then you look at Kastura, can get rid of it pretty easily. Mathmech can just link it away. Maybe it hurts Pearly a little bit. It's probably going to be okay to side in some instances. And then Sneaky C, it's just going to be like, no. Ash is probably going to be here. I think Ash is going to be here. Ash is just solid. Just an extremely solid card. It hits a lot of decks. It hits Branded the hardest. So, you have room for it. You will probably play it. And I think that Ash is just universally such a good card. When Branded comes back into the format, Ash just comes back into decks because it's an auto win. You Ash Branded Fusion and it's probably over there. So I think Ash is definitely going to be an okay to main card, and you're going to be seeing it probably over a lot of these, but probably together with a lot of them as well. Wait, only 32% of you are subscribed? Come on guys, leave a thumbs up on the video if you're enjoying this, and subscribe to support the channel. And then Ogre is definitely going to be at the top. I think if you're talking about Pearly and Super Heavy Samurai specifically, which are the new top contenders, and new decks to the format, like new strategies that we haven't really dealt with, Ogre is definitely going to be very effective. Their field spell, their continuous spell, and even their monsters, if you get rid of them, it prevents them from using them as Xyz material and just going absolutely insane. That's why it's such a good removal. And then if you're talking about Super Heavy Samurai, a lot of the cards needs to remain on the field, specifically the pendulum scale. So a lot of the times you would be able to, just ogre the scales or ogre one of the, starting combo pieces like the Link Monster, and your opponent will not have a lot to do. The Link Monster needs to summon back to the arrow in defense position, so what usually happens is that if you ogre that, they don't get the summon, they don't get the equip to tribute the Link Monster, and it's just GG's from there a lot of the time. So that's a very, very high impact card. And Bell is going to be a bit different, I think. I think it's going to be an okay to main, but it's only going to be okay to main if you specifically have the room for like a couple. It's gonna be for those decks that, like MathMech, that have a lot, like 50 non-engine slots. They can just run every single hand traps. This is still good against Kashira. This is gonna be fine versus Pearly maybe. This is very, very good against MathMech and Branded. Super effective. So I think if you can run it, it's probably okay to main. And DD Crow is just gonna be, unfortunately, probably just bad. Because it's a good card, but there's no room for it. Again, once you have the Bestials, there is like a Bestial is a hand trap. It's a DD Crow that searches for another DD Crow. It's always going to be better. DD Crow is just going to be obsolete from now on. Maybe if Thrust is like super impactful, but I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So unfortunately, DD Crow is going to be, right over there. And then Gamma is also going to be one of the strongest hand traps in the format. And the reason why is that it's one of the best defensive cards in the format. So if we're talking about Branded that loses to Ash, Super Heavy Samurai that loses to Droll, Pearly that loses to Droll and Ogre, and also Ogre is very effective against Super Heavy as well. Gamma is the best defensive option to protect yourself from a hand trap in a very vulnerable scenario, like activating Branded Fusion, like activating the new Super Heavy Samurai Prodigy Wakashi. Getting ogred on that is very bad, but protecting yourself with a card like Gamma wins you the game because it basically gives you a Baron on the field already. You use it to summon the Excel Dragon, the Excel summons back the Gamma, you got a Baron. So I think Gamma is going to be one of those things that you need to pick up as a defensive option, and it's going up in price as well. So I think if you look at Gamma from a defensive standpoint, it's a very, very good card. And then we're going to talk about Chaos Hunter. It feels bad for me to put it in the just bad category because I know it's not a bad card, but unfortunately, it's going to be one of those things that it's just not good. If you have 5 decks and only one of them really banishes, then it's going to be really hard to justify having this card somewhere, even in the main or in the side. You need so many tools to contend with a lot of decks in this format that I cannot justify this type of very specific interaction to make it into the main or the side. I think this is going to be the list. I would really, really love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think in the comments below? And before we say goodbye, let me just shout out my new sponsor, SleeveChief.de, the most incredible extra deck, main deck, and oversleeves in the market. A lot of really beautiful accessories, and all of these are 5% off if you use code GALZO5. So check them out in my description below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.